Test. Can you hear me? Okay. That was it.
Got a lively crowd out here today. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. I'd like to ask Wayne Justice to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Wayne. At this point, I'd like to recognize our ambassadors, Mr. Mike Gautreaux, Miss Robbie Roberts, Mr. Bob Sox, and our Ambassador Emeritus, the ever-present Mac McLeod. And then, Jerry, I guess you wanted to recognize the late Dennis Hepburn and talk a little bit about that.
Okay, yes. Dennis Hepburn had been my ambassador for 10 years. Probably a friend. Dennis was a friend for at least 50 years. Supported me, a great guy. Believed strongly in his ambassador's role for the port, was a port ambassador to the end. We'll miss him. I'd like to appoint Eileen Davis as my second ambassador, along with Robbie Roberts.
And is Eileen here?
No.
Well, I know Bob Sox is here. So, well, thank you, Jerry. Moving on, do I hear an approval of the agenda?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Excuse me, you've got to do two for each, there's 2 months there.
Oh,
June and July.
You need to vote special.
so separately or together? Okay, which one are you for, June or July, Jerry?
July is my birthday month, so I'm going to do July.
Okay, so all in favor of the July agenda? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Do I hear a motion for the June agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Or that was the minutes. Are you confusing me, Melanie? Okay, so those, do we need to redo this again? So those are the minutes. Do I hear an approval of the agenda?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of the agenda? Aye. Motion carries. And I'm going to say that we already approved the minutes. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
You're wonderful, Melanie. Thank you. All right, so moving on to our first commission discussion item. We did receive a letter from the Florida Department of Commerce and the Florida Department of Transportation addressing North Cargo Berth 8. And there has been, I would say, some confusion about our process that we went through to establish the location of our next cruise terminal. And so the letter specifically addressed the state's disappointment in the location, and it reinforced that we are to support space and to support cargo in that location. And so we've been asked to put that location on hold at this point. And so I'm going to open it up to my fellow commissioners to address the letter. It was addressed to all of us. And so I'll give each one of you a chance to speak. We can start with anybody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a few comments. Regarding port property, it's much better to be in high demand opposed to being underutilized. So, we should be thankful of that. And that's a better challenge to have than to not have business come our way. unfortunately, the more demand that you get, the smaller the port gets. It shrinks, you know. And so there will be tensions that will rise from that because the demand is so high. And those tensions will continue, I think, going forward. And so we just have to recognize that. In general, I am a proponent of home rule. In general, there are certainly exceptions. But when you have an asset this valuable as the port is, and the importance extends beyond regional to really encompass state and federal concerns and you know, desires and wishes, where it's really that much of an important asset, I think that requires some flexibility. And so I think in this particular instance, we have to be flexible. And I would be fine with a motion that involves reversing our decision to have a cruise terminal at North Cargo Berth 8. So as far as that goes, I think I'm fine with that. I did see there was some mention, this is kind of a little bit off topic here, there was LNG mentioned in the letter, and I know that wasn't the focus of the letter from the secretaries, but personally, and the only reason I bring that up is because I know we've had some inquiries regarding LNG. I've talked to John about this. I would not be in favor of having, say, an LNG facility such as liquefaction at the port. I don't think that's a suitable location for it. We have thousands and thousands of acres north of the port on federal and state property that I think would be more conducive to that, especially giving some of the, well, you have safety concerns, you have contracts with the cruise lines, you have, you know, you have the space industry wanting kind of their own little niches as far as how their energy is met, concerns are met. So I just mentioned that as a side because I think that might come up in the future, but that's kind of my feeling at this point. And then the final thing that I want to mention was that the middle turning basin, I know that there's been some progress in terms of being able to put vessels on the north side there, non-military related vessels, but looking at the plans that I've seen so far, did not seem very aggressive in terms of a timeline. And I would hope that that would become more aggressive so that we can accommodate these vessels and make the best use of the port. You know, one thing I've been proud about regarding the port staff is that when we have a major wharf construction project, we put our minds to it, we turn it around in 2 to 3 years. And so, you know, that's something that I'm proud about, Bill and his team and John, everybody. So I would hope that there would be that focus on the middle turning basin. I know that funds need to be raised and there are more considerations than just going through design and construction, but I hope that we can make full use of that so that we can really accommodate all the vessels that we have that are coming into the port. So those are my comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Fritz.
I'll follow up. I agree with the majority of what my fellow commissioner said. I definitely want to underscore that, as I always say, it's all about optimization of our deep water docks, our deep water assets, okay? And what's the optimal use, and that's what drives our, and we do have strategic thinking here, and what drives us down these different roads. You know, we talk about statewide assets. I mean, that the thought of not doing what we had planned to do at Terminal 8 may cost the state an asset. There's not a lot of room for cruise ships in the state of Florida these days. We understand, as you said, the competing interests that are out there, and we appreciate that. And I would like to also underscore your point about the middle basin. And the formal document that we have that's out there is this WARF study that's, again, targets the Middle Basin. We would like to, again, support the optimization and use of that property as well as the rest of the port's property. But again, we're on board, ready to move forward and show some flexibility here today. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, a couple of comments and statements I'd like to make that I want to present. For many years, the port has supported the commercial space industry operational growth with an array of landside and waterside assets to meet the evolving needs of the space industry. Our commitment to the enterprise remains strong. The port has not identified a location for a next cruise terminal, but we are confident that solutions can be reached to fulfill our commitment to the space industry as well as to our commitment to the cruise and economic business. Reversing the decision is not easy, but at the appropriate time, Mr. Chairman, I would be willing to make a motion regarding that matter. Perhaps after Commissioner Speak. Commissioner Charkis.
I'm a big believer in not repeating what you've already heard, so I thought, for the most part, my view on this situation has already been articulated. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, then if it's appropriate, I would make a motion to revert the decision to locate cruise terminal at North Berth 8 and direct staff to prepare a response to the August 2nd letter affirming and conveying that decision to Secretaries Perdue and Kelly.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I do have one comment before we call it the vote. I did meet with Secretary Perdue last week, and we had a discussion about partnering with the state on our business here, and I think it's a great idea that the state does understand our business here at the port, and they do take a vested interest in our mission. I think we and I think staff does a great job of balancing the demand for berth space here at Port Canaveral, and there's no one interest, whether it be space, cargo, commercial fishing, cruising, that's more important than the other. So, and I ran for office on that platform. I still stand on it. So the invitation stands that we would love to keep working with the state, keep working with Space Florida, and make sure that our entire community is successful and the port is successful. So I'll call it the vote.
There's no public comment. Just
Oh, there's no public comment. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
Passes 4-1. Moving on. Personal appearances and presentations. There's a time certain. Mr. Jeff Long, our new CFO.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I'm very excited to present our proposed fiscal year 25 budget. As you know, our fiscal year 25 begins October 1st of this year, 2024, and runs through September 30th, 2025. The agenda for the presentation will be as follows. I will first talk about the differences between our fiscal year 24 budget as compared to the fiscal year 25 budget. After that, I'll take a high-level look at our FY25 financial summary. And then following that, I will dive a little deeper and discuss changes in assumptions for our operating revenue for next fiscal year, then our operating expenses, and then finally our non-operating revenue and expenses. After that, I'll transition and discuss our plan for fiscal year 25 from a capital project perspective. And then finally, I'll review our proposed tariff changes and FTZ revisions. So as we compare FY24 to FY25, and this is in millions, by the way, if you remember our current year, fiscal year 24, bottom line budget addition to net position is $59.7 million. So taking a look at our increases to operating revenue that we expect in FY25, you can see a total increase to operating revenue of 23.8 from 187 million up to nearly 211 million. You can see the vast majority of that, over 95%, relates to our cruise revenue increase that we're projecting to be $22.9 million year over year. We've got some very exciting things happening in our cruise segment of our organization, and I'll just highlight several of those. First of all, we're calling for an increase of about 1.1 million cruise passengers from 24 to 25, from 7.3 million up to 8.4 million. The main drivers of that 1.1 million cruise passenger increase are as follows. Carnival Cruise Line is about 400,000 of that increase. Disney Cruise Line is about 400,000. Another 100,000 is from MSC. Another 100,000 is from a new ship, Celebrity, that will be coming to the port next year. And then finally, about 100,000 from the Caribbean Princess. Our total cruise calls are up about 110 from 913 in FY24 up to 1,023 in FY25. And just to put it in perspective, our 5 and 6 ship days for next year, we anticipate those being 84 days out of the year, up from 39 5 and 6 ship days that we currently have in FY24. So that means 25% of the year next fiscal, if you were to come to the port, we would either have 5 or 6 ships in our port. Cargo, we are projecting to have about a $600,000 increase year over year, and then other revenue, $300,000, and that rounds out the $23.8 million increase. From an operating expense perspective, we are projecting operating expenses to increase about $13.5 million from 24 to 25. And that would get us up to about $136 million from an operating expense perspective from $122 million. So some of the significant increases I've lined out for you here. First of all, cost of living adjustments, annual adjustments to our staff, those salaries, that represents about $800,000 of our operating expense increase. Benefit increases, mainly insurance, represent just under $1 million increase year over year. We are planning on having a 457 match for our staff, 50% up to 6%. So that's a 3% up to a 3% match. So we are building in an increase of about $700,000 for that new match. We're also investing in new staff. As you can see, we are projecting to have 27 new staff hired during FY25. So again, to keep up with the growth of the port, the growth of cruise passengers, we need this staff. Between salary and benefits for the 27 new positions, that's about a $2.3 million increase. And by the way, after we do hire the 27 positions, we would have a total of 283 staff here at the port. We're also investing in service contracts year over year. You can see about a $3 million increase. These are service contracts to service elevators, escalators around the port. We also are investing in landscaping, custodial services. Again, much of this is driven by the increase in cruise passengers. We're also assuming contractual obligations that we have to certain cruise lines for marketing, mainly Royal Caribbean and Carnival. That represents about $1.7 million increase. We're also building in about a $1.2 million increase in the public safety area of our organization. The majority of that $1.2 million increase relates to our agreement contractually with Brevard County Sheriff's Office year over year. In addition to that, the increased ship calls require us to have more of the deputies at our terminals. And we're also making an investment in making sure we've got adequate traffic control from the deputies that help us with traffic, especially on the 5 and 6 ship days that we have. Rounding out that increase, we've got about a $200,000 or $300,000 expected increase for Canaveral Fire and Rescue. Again, driven by just the increase of cruise passengers and other activity at the port. So we're definitely investing in those two very important areas of the port, police protection and fire and rescue. Depreciation and amortization, this is mainly amortization of some cleanup dredging. That increases about $1.6 million year over year. And then other increases are about $1 million, resulting in the $13.5 million increase. So the result of that is that our increase to operating income is about $10.3 million as we compare 24 to 25, which is about a 16% increase, up from $64.6 million to $74.8. So in summary, we started with 59.7 as far as the FY24, and then after the $10.3 million increase to operating income, and then net of non-operating revenue and expenses that I'll get into shortly, we have a bottom line for FY25 addition to net position of $70.2 million. So taking a look at a high level FY25 operating budget, you can see our total operating revenues of about $211 million, less our operating expenses, results in operating income that we're proposing of $74.8 million. When you consider the non-operating revenues of $9.4 million, which are primarily investment earnings that we have, and then after consideration of non-operating expenses, which are mainly interest expenses that we pay, plus crane disposal, 2 crane disposals that we are assuming that are $2 million, you round out to the $70.2 million addition to net position. And this will help us reduce debt and also make further investments in capital here at the port. Now taking a closer look at our operating revenues, again, budgeted to be nearly $211 million, which is a 13% increase year over year. You can see our cruise revenue is the vast majority of this. It's about 86%, so $175 million. Cargo, 23.6, about 11% of our total operating revenue. And then leases, from about 50 tenants around the port, recreation, jetty park, miscellaneous, et cetera, is the other 6% or so of this $12 million. Taking a deeper dive and looking at cruise revenue, our cruise revenue is 14% higher than FY24, so setting records here. I've mentioned this before, but our total multi-day vessels, ship calls, 1,023. And that's broken out between home ported ships, which make up about 90% of that, 912, and then port-of-call calls that we have. At certain times during the year, we will have 16 home ported ships here at the port. And you can see the number of vessel calls by cruise line and the number of ships they'll have year-round and seasonal, led by Carnival, Royal, and Disney Cruise Lines. We also have vessel calls from MSC and NCL, Norwegian Cruise Line, and then 2 new lines. The Princess, the Caribbean Princess, will be coming here, and also Celebrity for the first time, being home ported here on a seasonal basis. From a Carnival perspective, they will have 4 home-ported ships year-round and 1 seasonal. We are really excited about a new Vista-class ship coming, the Venecia, that will have 20 calls here at CT3, and Carnival will continue to utilize both Cruise Terminal 3 and 6. Royal Caribbean, 284 total calls, 3 home-ported, 1 seasonal. We were very excited to welcome Utopia of the Seas last month. They had their inaugural sailing. We're super excited about that. And we're also super excited to be welcoming next August, and towards the end of fiscal year 25, the Star of the Seas, which will be the largest cruise ship in the world. So once the Star of the Seas comes here to Port Canaveral, we will have the largest cruise ship in the world, and we will have the 3rd largest cruise ship in the world with Utopia of the Seas. So something that we're very proud of. Royal Caribbean will continue to utilize Cruise Terminals 1 and 5. From a Disney perspective, we're super excited about Disney bringing in Treasure, a brand new ship that will be coming here home-ported in December. So there will be certain times during the year in fiscal year 25 that we will have 3 home-ported Disney ships here. And because of that, Disney will be utilizing for the first time on a more permanent basis Cruise Terminal 10 to accommodate the 3 home-ported ships. MSC, we're excited about the increased calls that we have with this cruise line. The Meraviglia, we are super excited about. That is a port-of-call ship. It originates out of Brooklyn, New York, and we are on their itinerary each sailing 48 calls during the fiscal year. So we're excited about seeing that ship in here almost on a weekly basis. NCL will be bringing the Aqua, which is a brand new ship in 2025. It will arrive in April, and we are super excited about having one of their crown jewel vessels here at the port as well. The next slide I wanted to mention and highlight is just how important cruise parking revenue is to our port. We are projecting about a $4 million increase from 24 to 25 for cruise parking, of course, with the additional 1.1 million cruise passengers. It's a 9% increase over fiscal year 24. And cruise parking represents about 30% of our overall cruise revenue, so a very significant portion. And part of this increase would not be possible had it not been for the foresight of you all and John and staff to build 2 new cruise terminals that will be opening in November of this year. So we're super excited about that. It's an additional cruise terminal, Cruise Terminal 6, that will provide an additional 1,969 spaces, and then an additional cruise terminal at 10 providing over 1,000 spaces. So what this means is our garage parking increases once these 2 parking garages come online, will increase by 45%. We currently have about 6,800 spots, and then with the addition of these spots with the 2 new parking garages, we'll have close to 10,000, right at 10,000 spots in our garages. So a very important part of our cruise business. So by building these garages, obviously we as a port, we were future focused. By having these new parking garages, it allows us to bring in additional ships and also bring in larger ships. Taking a look at cargo revenue for fiscal year 25, we are projecting a total of $23.6 million. That's broken out between port fees that we have with our cargo partners and also rent that our cargo partners pay us. We are projecting 6.3 million tons to be moved through our port in fiscal year 25, led by petroleum, or really all transportation fuels that covers. We also are moving large quantities of forest products, slag. Heidelberg Materials made a big investment of $24 million in our port in 2023, and they're seeing the benefits of that, and we are too as a port. We also will have limestone, granite, salt, and fertilizer coming across our piers. Other revenue consists of leases that we have with about 50 tenants from across the port, $4.9 million in lease revenue. Parks and Recreation, mainly JD Park, is projected to be in total $3.9 million. JD Park Camping is about $2.5 million of that. Recreational parking, $1 million. Other $400,000. We're actually making some upgrades at JD Park, upgrading some of our RV spots. So some of those spots will be down, but we'll reap the benefits of having more robust spots moving forward. And then finally, from a revenue perspective, miscellaneous revenue of $3.1 million, consisting of mainly commercial vehicle fees, which is up a couple of $100,000 year over year, mainly due to the increased cruise passengers. From an operating expense perspective, total operating expenses, $136 million. Increases in salaries and benefits. As I've mentioned before, 27 new hires. We are investing in people here in the port with not only salaries, but also enhancing benefit packages. We're also investing in service contracts, facilities that I've mentioned, elevator, escalators. There's a lot of moving parts and pieces, of course, to run the port, and we're investing and making sure that we're being proactive in those areas. Public safety, very critical part to the port. We are investing in not only police protection, partnering with Brevard County Sheriff's Office, but also Canaveral Fire and Rescue. Again, driven by increased cruise passengers. We're also investing in technology, maintenance, custodial, et cetera. Depreciation, $49 million. Again, this is depreciating our assets that we have across the port, whether it's cargo berths, dredging, deepening, parking garages, cruise terminals. All those things obviously get depreciated, and we're anticipating $49 million of depreciation. And then finally, amortization, a total of about $1.9 million. That's mainly due to some cleanup of dredging, which we can amortize, and we are anticipating having $1.6 million of amortization related to that. So by department, taking a look at operating expenses, you can see that some of our significant departments are operations and facilities. That should come at no surprise. Also public safety, all of those areas are, critical to the port. And then administrative services are a significant part of our operating expenses. And of course, the depreciation and amortization that I've mentioned. So total operating expenses in our budget projected to be $136 million. Investment income, rounding out the budget, investment income, non-operating income, as I mentioned before, that's investment on cash that we have as we prepare for building new projects and investing in port assets. Our non-operating expenses, the big portion of that represents interest that we pay on our debt. And then crane disposals, we've got about $2 million projected to dispose of 2 cranes. Now transitioning to capital projects, we are anticipating spending in FY25 about $174 million in capital projects. Now, about half of those capital projects were either started or approved in FY24 that will carry forward in 25. And then about half of our $174 million or $88 million relates to new projects in FY25. So I just wanted to highlight some of the significant items. In FY24, you can see the carry forward items, the 2 parking garages that I've mentioned before that come online. We obviously are still working on those projects and still have cash outlays to complete those projects. Passenger boarding bridges to, of course, support our increased passengers of 1.1 million over last year, or FY24. CT10 improvements that, again, approved in FY24, phase 1, that we are still working on to complete in FY25. Cargo, North Cargo Berth 4 and Mobile Harbor Crane, those are some of the significant items for our capital projects carrying forward. From an FY25 perspective for new projects, we've got about $88 million slated. The large drivers of those, first is cruise, about $22 million in CT10 Phase 2, CT5 renovations, dock, roof lights, HVAC across the port, across many cruise terminals. Passenger boarding bridges, again, driven by the increase in passengers. Cargo and infrastructure, we've got about $20 million budgeted in FY25 for these capital projects, which includes berth improvements, dredging, paving, sanitary sewer, holding tanks, stormwater, among other items. Road improvements, about $11 million. George King, JD Park, Northside exit lanes, we've got that projected to be spent in our capital budget in '25. And then finally, Parks and Recreation, we've got about $7 million planned to spend for capital projects related to JD Park, the Camp Store Pavilion, and those RV upgrades that I mentioned earlier. How are we going to fund the $174 million? Well, primarily from port-generated funds, $161 million. We're also anticipating about $12 million of state grants coming to us next fiscal year, and also about $1 million in federal monies. I wanted to quickly just call your attention to 2025 proposed tariff changes that you've been made aware of and that I'm highlighting here, modifications to the rules. Very minor proposals here. The important thing that I wanted to mention is that our staff, we have discussed these proposed tariff increases with tenants, and we have advertised these changes in advance. And then finally, FTZ, a minor language revision to sections 4, 7, and 8. And just to remind you all that we're not calling for a vote on the budget or capital or the tariff changes FTZ revision today. We will come back during our September 25th commission meeting and ask you to formally approve the operating capital budget along with the tariff changes and FTZ revisions. Any questions?
I'll just make a comment. Obviously, what we did today is going to change some things, and that look forward to seeing how that rolls into next year's capital budget changes. Okay, and then as well as we talked at the meeting, the out-year capital budget. I know it's a work in progress. Look forward to it getting filled out. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And Jeff, obviously it is a robust budget that you're projecting for next year. Obviously, Cruise doing the major part of that. And even though there is a large increase in the net income you referred to, bottom line, that compared to the capital improvements, there's a lot of money that's going to be spent on capital improvements.
That's
so
right.
it's not that we just have $70 million laying around doing nothing.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Continuing to improve the port and the infrastructure and things we have here.
You're exactly right, Commissioner Allender. The monies that we make, 100% of those are just turned around and invested in the port to make the port better, stronger, to impact the community and the state from an economic perspective. So that's our mission, and that's what every dollar will be spent for.
And it's like the $88 million going to the 2 parking garages.
That's right. Exactly.
It's a lot of money. Producing a lot of revenue in the end.
Thank you, Jeff. Any more questions for Jeff? All right, we don't need a vote. That'll be next month, right?
Correct.
All right, good. Moving on, John.
Thanks.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, John.
We good? Waiting for Troy, I think. Might have to do an IT update here. There we go. All right. Thank you. We'll start out quick. We've had a very busy summer. We have, for the cruise line business, as Jeff has highlighted, we've been busy. We've got some upcoming things that I'm going to highlight in a minute, but we've done 770 ship calls through July, 6.4 million multi-day passengers, and we have 2 months left to go. So We're well on track to meeting our budget. Utopia of the Seas arrived on July 11th. We had a week-long celebration for that ship and test sailings on the July 13th and 15th. First revenue sailing was July 19th. You might notice that August is one of our slowest months of the year, so you'll see lots of parking spaces around here, but also know that the Utopia, being a brand-new ship, straight out of the yard, came to Port Canaveral, and much of the crew joined here, so the volume on that ship is going to ramp up over the next couple of months. So it's operating at a reasonably, probably 70% capacity right now while they get everything ironed out and get into a rhythm. So we're really excited to have that ship. We did the plaque exchange, naming ceremony, had a great community wave out party. It was quite the event for a week, and it's great to have a brand new ship like that at Port Canaveral. We also hosted Cruise Line International Association President and CEO Kelly Craighead and her Vice President of Trade Relations happened to be down here during the Utopia celebration. She had not been to the port before, and it was a great opportunity to show off everything that we do here on the cruise side. We also, just because everybody's watching, Disney Treasure will be starting in December. And she floated out of the yard at Meyer Werft in August 3rd. So that's the last step in the shipyard. Now they do the rest of the things while the ship's in the water, and we'll be seeing her in December. Just doing our passenger movements, you can look year on year. We've been very strong this year. That's largely a result of the larger ships we have on berth. You can see that our January to March period this year was significantly stronger than last year. Summer last year was a little higher. That's due to some ship exchanges. We had NCL here through the summer last year. We didn't have it this year, and July numbers are about the same as last year. And August and October are two bottom months for the year, so we'll be seeing some changes forthcoming. On my next slide, we've got the Disney Treasure arriving mid to late November. First revenue sailing is December 21st. She'll be 7 days at CT8. That will replace the Disney Fantasy in the rotation. The Disney Fantasy will move into a new rotation on a 554, and that ship will be operating out of Cruise Terminal 8, and the Disney Wish will move to Cruise Terminal 10. Royal Caribbean Voyage of the Seas, it's a seasonal vessel for Royal that'll be operating at CT5, 4 and 5 day through the winter season. She'll be here November 26th. So the point here is we got a lot of ships happening between now and the end of the year. Caribbean Princess arrives on November 27th, 6 and 8 day rotation at CT6. Celebrity Equinox will be here December 3rd, 7 day rotation at CT1. Carnival Venezia arrives on December 18th. That ship's been sailing out of New York. She'll spend her winter season with us this year at CT3. And then next year, just to round it out, we've got Norwegian Aqua, a brand new ship coming from the yard, arriving April 26th. She'll be here at CT10. And Star of the Seas has been announced. We don't have an actual date for that ship yet, but she'll be replacing the Wonder of the Seas on the 7 day rotation at CT1 for Royal Caribbean. So we're really excited with some of these changes, and they're really driving the popularity of our port, because a lot of these ships are new or new to Port Canaveral, like Princess and Celebrity, and it gives new options that our cruise guests have been looking for. So we're really excited to progress into this next year. We'll have 16 home-ported ships for the winter season. Prior to that, our record's been 13, so that's a significant jump over where we were. And when I started, I think we had 9, so we had a big jump over the last few years. Moving on the cargo side, a lot of cargo, 410 ship calls, 5.7 million tons. Seaport Canaveral celebrated 1 millionth tanker truck loading this past month. That's enough fuel to fill every U.S. gas station 1.5 times. So think about that amount of fuel coming through Port Canaveral and the significance of our fuel delivery network that we supply Florida. It's also the largest energy terminal, standalone energy terminal in the state of Florida. It's been operating at Port Canaveral for 14 years, and as we all know, critical fuel supplier for diesel, gasoline, and aviation fuel. Most of our nearby airports are very dependent on our jet fuel. So hats off to them and celebrating that millionth tanker truckload. We had a double LNG bunkering operation on June 22nd. We had the Disney Wish and the Utopia of the Seas, both taking fuel at the same time. And then year to date, our recovered space components, we've had 54 boosters versus 39 last year at this time, 128 fairings versus 82 in the prior year. We had one day where we had 2 boosters in town at the same time, and we're using both of our mobile harbor cranes to support the operations on each of the recoveries. So That's exciting. And a point I want to make is we've got that third harbor crane coming. It'll be here sometime next year, and we've made some recent modifications to that. Not a significant cost, it was like very small, under $10,000, to modify that vessel to accommodate a different type of booster that we're expecting here in the next year or two. So we'll be able to handle another space company's assets. So we're really excited to make that change, and it'll help make the port much more versatile. Excuse me. On communication side, we had a lot of media engagement, Utopia of the Seas events. That was, like I say, a week-long event. The world's biggest wave out on July 19th from Jetty Park. We had 800 attendees at that. But I think the point is over 7 billion people were reached globally on the Utopia events. That's a new record for us on outreach through our social media networks. So 8 billion. We had the Orlando Business Journal doing business in Brevard, panel discussion on August 1st. I attended that. We had talked about Brevard County projects, initiatives for 24 and 25. It was a good cross-section of our industry representation here in Brevard County. And we've got the annual State of the Port presentation. We've set the date for November 20th. It'll be an afternoon event at Cruise Terminal 1, and we'll have more information on that forthcoming. Government relations update, just so everyone's aware, we've got the Coast Guard Port Access Route Study, PARS they call it, public meeting scheduled for September 19th in this room. All port users are encouraged to attend, and what the PARS is the next step in a process. Is a long process to get to a point where you establish a safety fairway in the ocean, which is essentially an interstate highway, we'll say, in the ocean that everybody rides on in and out of the port. And our ultimate goal is to have that type of a safety fairway. They're all over the Gulf of Mexico. They're up in New York off the for arrival and approaches into New York. And we want one here at Port Canaveral that will steer clear of most of the space safety zones that they post in order to keep marine traffic flowing no matter what type of a launch is being projected. So this is a long process, but we're working through it, and we're optimistic that we're going to get some pretty good results out of this process. So we also have the NOAA, National Marine Fisheries Service Association, right whale proposed rule. As you know, that's the one that reduces the vessel size down to, I think, 36 feet, and it extends the zones significantly such that if you're running offshore and you've got a fishing boat or any kind of boat, pilot boat, anything, you have to be at 10 knots or less. It's a significant impact. It will impact us here at Port Canaveral. The zone's never been this far south before. We've been very vocal in both written and vocal statements concerning this. Our pilots have been very active in this, but it also extends up to Georgia, the Carolinas, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Maine. It's horrific, to say the least, on how far out into the ocean this extends and how it's going to impact commerce. So it's currently in the Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs. That's like the last stop in the government before it moves into a final rule. And all indications are that they expect to publish a final rule on speed regulation in November of '24. So if anybody in the community is opposed to this, please voice it to your congressman or congresswoman. But I can tell you that the general consensus is that this is rolling forward, despite the opposition.
Excuse me,
Go ahead,
John.
sorry.
I mean, there's an important election this November, right?
Yes,
Okay, I just want to make sure I understand that.
yes.
That could affect this rule.
It could affect the ruling, but once it's an agency of the government, so if it does go into effect, it'll be in effect. Maybe it gets returned or overturned at some point, but
Yep.
if they push it forward, it's there until somebody changes it. So
Yep, thanks.
just to put that out there. We're also talking to the Army Corps. Our discussions with the commercial fishermen indicated that maybe longer hours on the locks would be beneficial to them. Apparently, some of them keep their boats behind the locks, and we've met with the Army Corps of Engineers on July 30th, and we requested a 4-hour extension to the lock's opening time. And whether it's 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening, or 4 hours one way or the other, the Corps is open to that. They're reviewing it right now, and that could be a positive impact for our maritime community, small boat community, if the locks have an extended opening time. So just wanted to let you know that we're working that in the background as well. Also talking about the State Road 401 bridge replacement, this is a frequent topic that I bring up. It is, the FDOT has closed out the PD&E study and initiated project design. Port staff has participated in first of 4 technical advisory committee meetings on August 12th. The new bridge is estimated it will be 65-foot fixed span with 3 12-foot travel lanes. And the project goal is 30% structural plans complete by Q4 2025. Second item is FDOT State Road 401 bridge repairs. We have structural steel repair on the underside of the bridge lock replacement, and painting. These repairs will start September 26th and run through April 25, Monday through Friday from 7 to 1700, 5 o'clock. Required 401 lane closures and detours have been coordinated with port staff to minimize impact to operations, and the required channel restrictions are being coordinated with Coast Guard. And if you have any detailed questions about this, we have some representatives here from FDOT in the room today, so maybe you can point them in their direction after the meeting. Environmental update, Keep Brevard Beautiful Summer Series final cleanup on July 20th at Cape Crossing, and focused on the Western Barge Canal, Disposal Islands, and the Indian River Lagoon. Also participated in the 21st Indian River Lagoon Community Action Assembly hosted by Marine Resources Council. Bob Musser and his team attended the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers change of command on July 26th in Jacksonville. We honored outgoing Commander Booth and welcomed incoming Commander Bowman. The port's also hosting an international coastal cleanup at JD Park on September 21st. On the recreational side, the campground occupancy has been at 65%. Average daily vehicle count, 383. We celebrated the Parks and Recreation Month with the second annual Parks and Recreation Day on July 20th. We also hosted the annual fireworks event at the ET lawn on July 5th. Community event included a DJ, food trucks, and more. I believe that was successful this year, and we did a little bit different. Instead of launching from a barge, we launched from the landside at North Cargo Berth 5. So I believe the fireworks were better this year than prior years. We had an issue with the lights, but we finally got them turned off. Somebody forgot to flip a switch. On the port staff, we had nominated for Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association's annual Rose Award, recognition of service of excellence. And Emily Blanton, Michael Love, Tanya Dampman, and Shelley Loretta all received this award. So that's great for our recreational staff, and congratulations to them. Public safety, a lot going on here too. We had port coordination and participation in key partner meetings. July 31st was the EOC hurricane exercise. August 1st, Central Florida Intelligence Exchange Executive Committee meeting, that was in Orlando. August 15th, Space 101 briefing for senior U.S. Coast Guard personnel took place in our commission room. August 19th, LNG stakeholders meeting. That was with our team that is working with Disney on the Disney LNG ships. The Disney Treasure coming in December, also an LNG-powered vessel. On August 29th, we have Coast Guard Area Maritime Security meeting. And on September 19th, Port Access Route Study that I referred to on the earlier slide. We also activated Unified Command and Coast Guard Coordination Team in response to Hurricane Debbie. Fortunately, it was not an incident that we had to worry about, but it was a great exercise to run through the coordination team and come up with some ideas on how we can improve our process. And that is my report. Here's the day we had 2 boosters in, and we're using both cranes at North Cargo 6. Any questions?
Good
All right.
report.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Moving back to the financial data.
Thank you, Commissioner Lloyd. I've already reviewed the financial statements with you. You've each received the June and July financial statements. I answered questions that you had. So I am requesting that you consider accepting the financial memo and financial statements for each of June and July, and that you also consider accepting the statistical report, the aging report, and the list of bills for each of June and July. And then finally, you consider approving the list of disposals, legal bills, and commissioner minor expenses for each of June and July.
Thank you, Jeff. Do I hear a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Mr. Bill Crow?
Morning, Mr. Chairman. Morning, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this brief overview of our current ongoing capital projects. So there's a few items I'm going to highlight on our consent agenda, starting with item 1C. This is an area of the Cove seawall that is original. It was constructed back in the 50s. We inherited this wall when the port was chartered, and so it is in a state of disrepair. We are applying a solution to this wall that is roughly a 20-year service life extension. So it's a series of epoxy crack injection and the application of a fiber reinforced polymer coating along the entire face of this wall. So we did a public bid solicitation. We did receive one response from Rush Marine. The President, Tony Landry, is in the audience if there are any questions. So we're awarding this project, or actually recommending award of this project to Rush Marine for the $2.7 million. A little bit of background on this. If you recall, we had a few different options put together from Atkins, the engineer of record. There was a very low-cost option. There was a high-cost option of complete wall replacement. That would have yielded a service life of roughly 50 years. And if you recall correctly, we decided to go with the middle option and get about 20 to 25 additional service life years out of this wall scenario. Any questions on item 2C?
This is the seawall
1C?
in front of grills or along.
That is correct. This is, we call it the Cove seawall, but it is the wall that is actually underneath Grill's deck. So our ability to limit disruption to their operation is key. This approach does that although we will have probably some aroma, some odor from the polymers that are applied, and we will work closely with Grills during that activity. We are executing this on the August commission meeting because September, October traditionally are not slow, but slower months for the restaurant. So the timing's worked out great.
Timeframe for completion?
About 60 days.
Okay.
It will be plus or minus as we work with the restaurant owner and operator on daily logistics and deliveries and applications, impacts from the project. But we're estimating about 60 to 90
Okay.
days. Next item, item 1D. So we are very happy, pleased to bring this to you. This is the reworking of the main intersection on George King Boulevard with Flounder and Columbia, right outside of the Maritime Center. We did a low bid solicitation on this project as well. It was designed by RS&H. We are recommending award to Ivy's Construction for the $2.827 million. It will consist of the improvements that will add 2 dedicated left turn lanes off of eastbound George King Boulevard onto Flounder. And this has been a highly desired improvement to the intersection for traffic not only going to the Cove, but Cruise Terminal 1 as well. And these will be what we call a protected turn movement. So there will be a green arrow actually allowing free-flowing movement from these 2 left turn lanes onto Flounder, whereas currently it is a green light where you yield to oncoming traffic. So a much more efficient intersection is in the works. We will complete the 4-laning of southbound Flounder. We will still provide 2 through lanes through this intersection to the east terminus of George King Boulevard, the right turn lane into the Maritime Center, and full re-signalization of the intersection as well. Really excited about this. It is a longer lead time item as the traffic signal mast arms they're custom designed. Each intersection has its own custom design signalization, and so that does add time to the project. Any questions on this item? I will move on then to item 1E. This is a dredging related item. This is being awarded or recommended for award to the Dutra Group. It consists of 3 major components, the first of which is a full deepening of North Cargo Berth 8 and the connecting area to the West Turning Basin. Currently, North Cargo Berth 8 sits at a draft of -35 compared to mean low water. It was designed, however, by the engineer Jacobs to go down to a -43. So we do now with this project have the option to take it down to minus 43. That would only be required if it were to be a multi-use cargo pier. A lot of our deep draft aggregate vessels, slag vessels, they need deeper water. And so this would support the multi-use of this pier. And as we all know, a lot of that cargo goes right into the Central Florida construction market, commercial, residential, and highway construction as well. Second part of this is the deepening of North Cargo Berth 1 and 2. These are our main fuel docks that will deepen these to a minus 43. They were originally designed to 41. We had worked with our engineer of record and a geotech to do some post-design studies nearly 35 years later, economizing on the original structural design of these piers. That allows us to go deeper. So this will support larger vessels calling at our fuel piers. And the third component, other than MOB demob, is just some cleanup maintenance dredging that we were unable to get to last year during the maintenance dredging window. So we'll be looking at all these docks you see listed there for maintenance dredging. Questions on this item?
Quick question, Bill. How many,
Yes, sir.
how many bids did we get on this?
We only anticipated getting one
Because
bid.
only one company really does this.
Dutra is the only one that is in the area. We did have a mobilization charge of $1.5 million as a part of this bid. The work they are doing for Brevard County does use different dredging equipment than the bucket dredge that they'll be using in our harbor. We have seen on past projects even higher demob costs. When there's larger dredge quantities, larger cubic yardage of material, they require many more scow barges, those belly dump scow barges that are on continuous rotation to the offshore disposal area. They cost a lot to mobilize those because they're not self-powered. Each one requires tug assist. And in this case, though, it's a $1.5 million MOB cost, MOB demob. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, thanks.
If there are no other questions on these three particular items, I'll move on just to the general port overview. As you see, we have a myriad of different projects going throughout the port: recreation, cruise, and cargo, including the next gen mobile harbor crane that Captain Murray mentioned in his update. Just a minor point on the current Jetty Park Camp Store construction. It is looking to be complete about the end of October. And item 1H on the agenda is procuring furniture that will completely outfit that location with 22 workstations, point of sale desk, shelving for the sales floor. There's some outdoor furniture that will go along with that excuse me, package. Any questions on any specific projects on this map?
North Cargo Berth 4 is a little behind schedule. Is Orion supposed to tear down the silos for CEMEX when they are done? How's that? When do the silos come down?
Excellent question. So the silos are owned by CEMEX, and as a part of that lease, they are required to restore the facilities to original condition, which does require the removal of the silos and other appurtenances in that facility. That is the responsible of CEMEX. We have met with their demo contractor. It's not Orion. It is a specialty demo contractor. The name of the company escapes me, but we can certainly get that to you, Mr. Chairman. And due to the safety concerns of their approach to the demolition, which will predominantly use a wrecking ball to bring the superstructure down, our project will need to be either complete or there are areas of our project, i.e. the final lift of asphalt adjacent to the CEMEX towers, we will leave off. We will come back after the towers are gone and finish that 1.5 or 2-inch lift of asphalt because there's liable to be some damage from concrete debris or heavy equipment operating on the new asphalt.
But that's not going to affect the bollard issue, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
The bollard that we spoke of yesterday, day before, that sits on the corner of North Cargo Berth 5 and North Cargo Berth 4 does get installed toward the end of the project, but it will not be affected by the demo of the tower. It is outside of that, I believe it is a 185-foot safety radius that we're working on with CEMEX. So the project was originally contemplated to be complete by the contract October 30th. It will not be complete October 30th. We are still pending a final, not a final, but the next updated schedule from our marine contractor. We anticipate it to be later, but still within the calendar year.
Bill, what's the status of the crane removal?
So the crane removal, thank you for asking about that. We have all of the expertise we need at the table. Jacobs Engineering is working on our behalf to provide the front-end solicitation documents and some other general arrangement documents for those cranes. We received that 90% package. I believe I saw an email yesterday of that. So thank you, Gary, for spearheading that effort. We will have that for award on the October commission meeting, is what we're targeting currently. Another piece of that is we're working closely with Paul Bridges and Associates out of Mobile, Alabama. We have established a fairly robust cut, rigging, and lifting plan because we will be deconstructing those cranes piece by piece. As you recall, we have twin mobile harbor cranes that sit just to the south of their position. We also have, one of our tenants has a very expensive custom crane built by Liebherr sitting just to the north of those positions. So it will be a surgical deconstruction process. We just want to make sure that, that we are approaching that with all due diligence required. There will be a substantial amount of fill material placed on the area to protect our asset then of the wharf. Then once all the crane components are cut up into 30-foot sections and removed, we will look at removing the majority of the crane rail itself. The beam will stay in place that is buried under the asphalt, but the crane rail itself at that point becomes nothing more than a tripping hazard. So we're going to look at having that removed as well.
And the design of the pavilion, where
Pavilion
how's
is
that
going very well. We did have a delay with the civil site design, but we have that well underway, and we are going to be working with a continuing contract to price up the pavilion replacement, demolition of the existing facility, save the existing restroom area, renovation of the restroom, installation of a covered canopy with plenty of seating via picnic tables underneath that canopy. There will be an area for at least two. We're attempting to fit a third food truck parking space to the south of the pavilion. So it's going to be a well-appointed and very flexible space for recreation. And again, we will have that project as well at the October commission meeting for award. And the timing of that, as we've talked about before, works out really well with the season in the seasonality of the use of Jetty Park. So it's going to be, relatively speaking, a slower season while we have our contractor in there doing that work and repaving. And it's going to turn out very nice.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Moving on, there's no public comment on the consent agenda. Melanie, thank you. Moving on to consent agenda, Commissioner Von Volkenberg, do you want to pull any items, sir?
3A, please.
Commissioner Justice?
Thanks to Bill's fine update, I've got none, thank you.
Thank you. I have none. Jerry, do you have any?
Oh, no. Then,
Thank you. Commissioner Markey?
None.
Thank you. All right, do I hear a motion to approve item 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, 1E, 1F, 1G, 1H, 2A, 4A, 4B, 4C, 4D, 5A, 5B?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving back to Commissioner Von Volkenberg, 3A.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is in regards to paid parental leave policy. I'll be voting against this, so I'll be a nay vote. And the reason is I think it's a little too generous. We're offering up to 12 weeks of paid leave as opposed to unpaid. You know, I support families, of course, like hopefully everybody here does. But to me, this is just a little bit too extravagant, a little bit too much of a subsidy in my view. You know, one of the arguments for it, of course, is it helps with retaining and attracting employees, and I don't dispute that. But I don't think that that's that material in my view, especially with the economic headwinds that we're facing. The job market is changing, as everybody knows, and I think it's going to deteriorate personally a little bit more as we go forward. Coming out of COVID, the employees really, you know, there were like 4 positions per employee out there when people were looking for work, and that has changed significantly. As a tool, I don't think that it makes that much of a difference in my view. The cities in Brevard and the county itself, to my knowledge, do not have anything approaching this kind of a policy. John brought it to my attention that the state does. I pulled their rule, their administrative rule, and ours is much more generous than theirs is. If we look at the examples in our policy, Brittany has an uncomplicated birth and is eligible, blah, 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 for leave. So she would get 12 weeks. With the state, that would be 9 weeks under state policy. Andrew adopts a new baby. He would, in my view, the way I read this, he would get 5 weeks. The state, it would be 2 weeks. So, you know, that being said, you know, a few weeks would be fine for me, 2 to 3 weeks, and then short-term disability to the extent that would cover going forward. But to me, this is just too generous, and so I'll be voting against it. But the board may consider, or they may not, if they're going to adopt it to the extent that the state does, and not go beyond that. But those are my views. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Von Volkenberg. And I would like to say that the reason we have 3 deputies here at this meeting is to give you extra security on the way out to your car today.
I know.
Any other comments on it?
Yeah, I'll comment on this. You know, again, as we discussed it, I thought this was supposedly somewhat like the states, and if it's a little more generous.
It's a little more generous in the state, but less generous in the federal government.
And I'm going to jump on that because I got to tell you, I only had 37 years in the Coast Guard, and I got out, and I've been doing this. But one of my good friends, who's in the Space Force right now, just had a baby, and it's unbelievable what they've done in the military for childbirth. I mean, you get 2 months. You get 8, but you can take it any time. You don't have to take it after the baby's born. You can do it so your wife can work. I mean, it's unbelievable, and it's really. I'm not to argue with you, but just on the other side of the coin, as a nation, we're not having kids.
Yeah.
Big picture, I'm just saying that anything that would support the next generation, 2 generations. Is good. I'm on that side.
If I could just add, you know, the federal and state employees get paid parental leave already today. The federal employees, it's more generous than ours. And you keep in mind our employees, a lot of our people come from that environment to work for us. The other thing is our recruitment. We search not just statewide, but nationwide for employees. And this is a competitive issue, believe it or not, in bringing young people into a organization today. You know, our workforce is an older workforce here at the port. Next few years, some of our long-term employees will leave, and we need to bring in younger talent. And this, believe it or not, is a significant issue for younger people going to work today. So I just want to say that we need to be reaching high to get the best talent we can, and it's something that's come to my attention. This is a significant issue for us, and it's a detriment to our hiring people today, young people, young women in particular. So I just want to put that out there. We tried to be as fair as we could. We took it a little bit better than the state, but it's still not the same as the federal policy. So that's what we presented.
Thank you, John. Thank you, gentlemen. Do I hear a motion on item 3A?
I move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay?
Passes 4-1. Moving on, do we have any public comment? I believe we do. We'll start with Mr. Mac McLeod.
You don't lose my time while I'm walking. It's not fair. Well, gentlemen, as you know, I'll be 94 this year, and you know, you have to look forward to things. Like I might not be here forever, which is probably not too bad a deal. But I've had this picture for a long time. I've had it in my house, condo. And it's let me just show it to the people itself. It's at Port Canaveral, it's in North Cargo Pier 3. And that's the first ship that went to Japan with China, or with citrus. And this was one of the big things we did at the port back in 1997. This picture was the official thing was that it was called the Freezer 8, and it was January 9th, 1997. And somebody, a lady or a guy, I'm not sure who it was, painted this in Cocoa Beach. You know, they paint everything that moves, you know. And so I saw that picture and bought that picture. It was on a big piece of paper. And then I had it framed later on, which was a lot more than the cost of the paper painting. You know, framing, it cost a couple hundred, I don't know, $300 or something. I don't know what it was. It was a lot of bucks for at the time. And so it's something that we really needed in Port Canaveral, which was to support our farmers out there. And so this was a big deal with the citrus industry when we can ship this stuff from Port Canaveral to China and Japan. You know, mostly Japan. This was really going to Japan. So it is an important thing, and I thought we could put it up here someplace. I think you'll find a place where people can look at it, and it has all that information. On the bottom here, I had put a little deal on it.
Do you want me to pick it up so they can see
exactly
it?
what that thing is, so. And you can. No, that's not my time now, so.
So you're giving that to the port?
I'm giving it to you, yeah.
Donating it, not donating it.
As a donation, yeah. I'm not asking you for anything except to put it on the wall
You're
so that
examining
people
this
can
card.
remember what we did for the citrus industry years ago, and we still do all that. So.
Well,
Now, the other thing is your,
This is the second 3 minutes.
yeah. Maybe I got double time now. And that's, what is this business about the federal government telling us what to do? John asked me the other day, you know, what I thought about that, and my initial response is that when the federal government comes down, because they did when I was there a whole bunch of the time, with all kinds of different things that they wanted done. And, you know, I always ask them, well, okay, you know, we can probably do this. We'll agree to it, but we want something too. And that's the key. So I thought to myself, well, maybe I ought to tell the port what I think we ought to ask for, because I know that it's, and I agree with what the commission has done. They are important to us too. But there's other things that have happened. We need the port needs things from the federal government too. I mean, they come and took our north side. This wasn't there as the north. All that north side was originally Port Canaveral, and they came in and took it and gave us some money, and then, I mean, they got a good deal, boy. I mean, that whole thing is over there, and I'm always have been really upset about the fact that they don't really use that north part of the port. And on the west side of on the military side, they don't use that. We could use that, and they don't. It's all vacant land over there sometimes, and it's been there that way. And I've always been concerned that we would like that. That's one thing I would say that,
Mac.
But the other thing is what?
Thank you. And
Well,
we
I'm going to
agree
tell
with
it
you,
anyway.
and-
I'm going to shoot. If you think you're big enough to knock me off, then you come on, get me. Two other quick things. 6 Landing, the Bennett Causeway is something we need all the way out to I-95. That's one thing we need. We need the land south of the Barge Canal deeded to the port some. I don't know. We got to deal with the people anyway. Anyway, that's my thought. So
Okay.
I'm sorry I
Thank you,
took
Matt.
too much time.
So the rule is if you're over 90, you actually get 5 minutes. So
You get whatever you want.
you get whatever you want. We appreciate you, Mac. One more comment card, Bob Sox.
Thank you very much. Somebody very special was missing at the front door today, as you're well aware. Dennis Hepburn passed away on the 22nd of July. He was a good friend of all of ours, particularly Jerry and myself. I used to speak to Dennis on a regular basis, and we used to go out for coffee and have lunch after the meetings. I was so shocked when I heard he passed away. His sister Barbara called me on that Monday that he passed. I was so shocked, I couldn't believe it. I just spoke to him, and I didn't even know he was sick. And he passed away. A man of great integrity who had an incredible love for Port Canaveral. He used to come down here on a regular basis all by himself or with his brother Jimmy and just drive around and report back to Jerry things he saw that needed to be corrected.
Corrected.
I mean, that is a man of great integrity who was a volunteer here for, 10 years? And he was dedicated. He was a great friend. We had his funeral on Monday up at St. Teresa's with a reception immediately thereafter. Got to meet the whole family, and it was a great honor and pleasure for us to be there to honor Dennis, who was a great volunteer here at the port. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. All right, Commissioner reports. Commissioner Von Valkenburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly, in late July, I attended the CivMill Community Relations Council meeting we had with a buffet here in Terminal 1. So that was a great event. And then earlier in August, I attended the National Veterans Homeless Support Dinner. They do great work. Highly recommend those two events, and I enjoyed myself. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, quickly again, beginning of the month, I gave a port update to, actually, we're celebrating the Coast Guard's 234th birthday over at the IRCC. There was a luncheon crowd there, and I talked to port. The Port Canaveral Yacht Club recently had a ribbon cutting. They've got a brand-new pier there. Those of you who know that part of the port, it's a nice new pier. They needed it. The CEO of No2, Captain Schneider, was nice enough to accept my invite to update the Propeller Club at the beginning of the month, so we got an update on No2. I joined you at the NVHS. That was great. Tomorrow, I'm doing a port update at the Cocoa Beach Regional Chambers Luncheon somewhere. And Friday, Palm Beach Chambers Space Coast Symposium. I'm gonna rep the port for that. But I'm gonna just finish real quick. I want to just say that the board strongly supports the leadership of our CEO and backs the recommendations that were made by him and the port staff. And we appreciate the extensive review, business, financial analysis provided to us when we make recommendations up here. I want to publicly thank you all. Thanks.
Thank you, Wayne. Commissioner Allender.
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Markey.
Yes, I attended the same CivMil function that Mr. Van Valkenburg referenced, and knew a lot of people there, but I met a lot of very impressive mariners there as well. I enjoyed it. I also attended the Propeller Club luncheon where the No2 presentation was made, and boy, was that informative. I had no idea the extent of what goes on out there. So there's a lot happening here at the port that we continue to learn about and grow to appreciate. And I wanted to thank Captain Murray also for elaborating on the lock operations, because I think I'd like to believe most people are under the impression that we have a great deal of oversight on the locks, and we have pretty much zero. And I attended that meeting with the commercial fishermen, and it was enlightening both for them and for us. And this is a result of that meeting. It was something very meaningful to the commercial fishermen as well as your average angler. So I appreciate you spending some time with that on our agenda today. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Markey. I did attend a trip to Washington, D.C. with our friends from the Cocoa area and Brightline, and we went around to different offices and tried to get grant money for a cocoa station. So that'd be good for our community. I think it'd be good for Port Canaveral. And we'll see what happens, I guess, in October. We'll find out if that grant application was approved. So that was very enlightening. And I agree with Mac that the federal government and the state government have an interest in Port Canaveral. And we do make a big impact on our community. And with the light of the letter and all the things that have happened, we will work with the state, and we will ask for things that we need here, and so let's turn the lemons into lemonade. So moving forward, we're all in agreement, and that's the end of the meeting. So we're going to adjourn to the next meeting for Wednesday, September 25th. Thank you all for coming.